Just one more second. Come on. All right. Okay, so when composing, you're trying to get closer to the reference, or you're trying to learn something when it comes to composition, right? How can I get there a little bit faster? To be honest, you just have to take the model, and it's usually better if you pick somebody that's not like way far away from where you are, talent or production wise. If you find somebody that's pretty close to you in terms of just the overall package, then you can be a lot more effective. So here's a song that I pulled up. It's by one of my contemporaries. So this isn't like impossible, right? It's one thing if I pulled up a John Williams score. It's like, whoa, I don't even know where to start, right? That may not be the case for you, but I'm just explaining to you, if you really want to learn effectively and really be a master at this level where you are right now, Brendan, what I recommend is that you pull in a reference track from somebody that you know, a contemporary, or even a composer that is up there, but not necessarily the biggest one in the world. Okay, so that being said, I'm now going to start inserting markers in order to give myself a better sense of what they're doing. Because when you listen to music, for many of us, it overwhelms our senses, right? It's just such a uh, uplifting experience that it's hard to be logical. But when you load it on a DAW and you're looking at it, from left to right, we're gonna break down all the components. So at the very beginning, you can hit the key command if you want, but I'm just gonna hit marker, and I'm assuming there's some kind of intro. So we're gonna listen, and this is what I suggest for anybody, beginner, intermediate, or advanced. This is what it takes to continue to evolve. So here we go. Okay, so that's the intro. It's fair to say that this is actually an A section, not an intro, right? Which they differ. So at this point, I'll say A section, and then if you really want to dissect this, and I would hit A section and then start to describe what's happening in the song. For example, add a ride, right? We heard something on the one there. And then on top of that, we also heard a pad. Now, if you really want to get detailed, you could go in there and you can start add a pad. It's a perfect fourth, right side of the speaker. It just depends on how detailed you are. But we heard that, right, Brendan? We heard that evolution. Check it out. Okay, and so now this becomes a theme where the ride comes in on the one, right? We heard it there. We heard it there. The pad only came in on the one, so let's just kind of keep that uh, pattern or motif in mind. Keep going here. Same thing. And so you see what I'm doing, right? I'm just breaking it up. Here they start adding. It's really just a song that's I'm not sure if you've seen the How to Be a Full-Time TV Composer course, but I talk about all the various song structures. Okay, and so this is just what we call the layer and build. We keep it's the same guitar line from right here. Listen, same thing here, and same thing here. But what happens is on this next section, we start to add what? Some percussion. And on and on. And I would do this until I knocked this style, knocked this genre out of the park, until I mastered it. And again, it's composition, but it's also production now, right? We're living in a special time where you have to be a triple threat. It's not enough to do one thing anymore. And by the way, it's feasible to do all the various things. I don't want you to ever get intimidated because you can do it. You just probably haven't spent the time yet, and so that's why you're not there yet. But you can get there. I've seen people do it in months, like I really have, and they become juggernauts where they're really active. They're really out there. So does this help a little bit? Have you ever done this exercise before?
I haven't, and that's I think exactly what I'm looking for.
Oh, all right. Thank
Yeah,
God.
it's great. Do you have a list of like genres that you think are most relevant, like to whatever
Um,
you're studying, or do you think you have to figure out
you
what you
you
learn?
mean in licensing or just in general? Because it all depends on what you're up to, you know?
Okay, cool. Yeah, maybe I need to figure that out.
Yeah, so get clear on what your objective is. Like let me just be clear with you. When I first started, my aim was to be a self-sufficient uh composer, like full time. Like that was that if I could just get that, I was completely happy with the rest of it. So remember that I grew up as a singer-songwriter and basically punk rock kid. Not a lot of range as far as musical chops. So what I would do is I would just sit down and study the music like this, and then I would model my music after their music, and I would just do my best. Okay, like they're adding kicks here, so I start adding kicks there, right? And then here on this part, they start adding hi hats on the right speaker. So then I would, and then I just became really good at mimicking. There's a really good art book called "Steal Like an Artist." If you could check it, yeah, phenomenal. It basically teaches you how to be your own artist, which is basically when you figure out the formula, you're really just taking your heroes, right, or your heroines, and you're just copying them, and then you become yourself naturally, right? So if I were you, I would take the time and I would analyze 30 songs, 20 songs, even 10 songs. And I would just spend, and by the way, if you need music, I have a lot of reference music. So just tell me what music you're interested in composing. Like if you like the stuff you just heard, I can send you a folder, and then I would copy it if I were you. Literally just phrase by phrase, not the parts per se, but just the overall idea. So if he's playing, I don't have my I don't have my acoustic guitar here, but if he's playing, that basic power chord that he was playing up on the register, I would play the same power chord, but maybe like a third or a power chord, but in the lower register. And then instead of using drums are easier to copy because nobody knows, right? Unless you're copying Queen's like We Will Rock You. That's really the only drum line that's that memorable. But besides that, you can copy drums like left and right. And you're copying why? Because you want to learn, right? And so if you need more help, I'm open to talking to you, but you need to start mimicking. If you want to find your own voice, you have to start copying. There's just no way around it. Nobody just has these ideas out of that come out of nowhere. We all listened to music when we were kids, or you played video games and the music blew your mind. It comes from somewhere. So we just need to discover what that is for you. And then think about what the end goal for me was. I needed to become a self-sufficient composer. And so I had to copy the music from my field in order to learn it. And that's it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And if we want to move on from this, or
Yeah. No, no, let's go. But real quick, I got those templates, and the only reason I haven't given them to you yet, Brendan, is because I thought it would be more useful if I gave you templates to compose to. So, in other words, imagine I give you a template and all the parts are already written, and then you delete all my stuff, and then you write new parts that are already mixed. That's the only reason I haven't given them to you yet, because I thought it would be more valuable if you compose to it. So, just give me a little bit more time, and then we'll get those over to you. Okay, cool. Mags.
yeah, okay. So do you have like I don't know if it would be some sort of document or anything. Like I think something that I run into is sometimes I don't know what all of the things do in Logic. Like obviously I know what pan does, but like an example of that would be like, oh, I know I want the sound to move here, but then knowing I guess the plugin or the action to take to get that. Like, so if you're in like a Logic session and you see all the different elements you can add to yeah, like in the inspector,
Okay.
like if you're seeing some of the I don't know, yeah, like some of the different elements that you can add into it.
So it depends if we're using MIDI and audio, because really there's only two kinds of tracks in every single Logic session. You only have either audio or MIDI.
Right.
We've talked drummer is just a MIDI, but it has an artificial intelligence component to it. And then the pattern format is just a format that you use. In other words, I can use the pattern format in a MIDI track, right? So we talked about that as well. So um, the components in the channel strip are differ a little bit. Like for example, with MIDI, you have MIDI effects, and with audio you don't have MIDI effects because it's just not MIDI, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. But other than that, we can look at the whole channel strip if you want, and I think that could help you. But they're pretty much the same after that.
Yeah,
Are
and
we
maybe
good?
it's just a matter of going through, but sometimes like I maybe I'll record some audio and then I want to add like a reverb or a delay, and then knowing what to do within those like I'll maybe even pick up a preset that's in
Yep.
the
Library.
the yeah, and then I'll be like, whoa, that's sounds fucking bizarre. That's not at all what I was looking for.
Right. So like if you had a little bit more control over it, that would feel better, yeah?
Yeah, I guess.
That's one of the problems with the decisions they make for you is like you have no power, right? It's just like you're just guessing the whole time. So it's nice when you do have the knowledge because you then have more control. And that's what we're all
I,
after, by the way. This is why we take the classes, read the because we were looking for not control like let me choke it, but control, let me be free. Right through discipline, I can have freedom. So here, let's answer a couple of your questions because this conversation kind of just feels a little bit more experiential, if you will. So you said drums, is that what you said? So let's just
I,
take the
anything really, like I said an audio track, like if I recorded something and or whatever, yeah, it
okay.
doesn't
Well,
anything.
let's pretend that you just recorded this or whatever. It's just a loop. And here, I'll close the markers G so we're not visually distracted. And so if we just start looking at the channel strip, okay, let's listen to it. Oh, I'm sorry, I wanted a beat. We'll keep both, but yeah, here we go. Beat, not bass. All right, here we go. Okay, so right away, let's just say you wanted the drums to be louder. Okay, well, the volume of the channel strip can handle that. Or we know that the region inspector can also raise up the gain. There's this new feature inside of Logic, inside of this action and gear menu. See how it says auto leveling? This is new to 10.5. If that is off, you have to adjust the volume. If that is enabled, which it's by default it is, Logic will make some decisions for you as far as the gain goes so it can accommodate in your song. So that's pretty cool. It's really interesting. But let's just say you wanted the drums to be louder. Okay, well then I'll just raise up the, gain. Now, Eddie, what's the difference between raising up the volume in the region inspector and raising it up in the volume channel strip? Does anybody know? So think of it like a sequence. The region inspector goes first, and then it's going into the channel strip, and then it goes out to the stereo output. So essentially, this volume or this gain is happening first, and then this volume is happening second. So there's a difference between those, and so it's a little bit more relevant if I add a plugin. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, we just finished talking about compression. And it's just the start of a much longer conversation. But all right, you guys all know how to basically set this guy up, so it should be set up like this. Okay. All right, you see how it's barely hitting the signal right now? It's barely crossing the threshold. All right, so if I raise the volume up or down, it doesn't change the result. Check it out. You see, even if the volume is on or off, my friends, honestly, it doesn't make a difference because it's happening post fader. It's happening after the fact. The effect is coming before the volume fader. Now, if you really want to understand signal flow, check this out. If I go to the region inspector and I raise this up, I'm going to go crazy, okay? Look how much harder the volume going into the compressor is going to affect it. Check it out. Watch your ears. Let me put this down. Look, look. Now, why would I do that? Because it's all signal flow. If I hit the compressor harder, it's going to sound different. Same thing goes for a distortion plugin. The signal is going to be hit harder, and as a result, it's going to react differently. And so every tool has its little tricks. Like if I hit a compressor really hard, it's going to sound a certain way. So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. What if you go in and you press like you press A
A.
in the region there?
Yep.
Yeah. And then you is that the same as doing it in the inspector?
So that right there, Mags, is happening post fader. It's happening after the fact. So it's not going to hit the compressor any lighter or any heavier. Does that make sense?
Okay, so that's pretty much the same as the
Volume fader.
volume. Okay.
Yeah, in fact, it's just signaling movement in the volume fader. For example, and this is obvious, but just real quick, you see it moving down, right? So it's not changing the behavior of the compressor. You'll notice. Check it out. Still going, still going, still going. Just
Wow. Okay.
so real quick, there's a difference between gain and volume. Gain is signal strength going into distortion, modulate, whatever, it doesn't matter. And volume is just what's perceived between you and me, right? So I can raise up the volume, I can lower the volume. It doesn't really matter because the source, the gain is still being inputted or inserted into the compressor. So I hope that helps. But it's a game changer. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Eddie, what about if you gain stage your track and you automate the gain and you put it before the compressor on your channel strip? Will it also affect? Will it then affect the compressor?
So I just want to show them what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong. Hey Eddie, if I add a gain plugin, am I right?
Yep.
And I apply, yeah. So that okay. Now we're talking the same language, because the gain or the signal strength going into the X compressor reverb is going to affect it differently. So yes, you're right here, my friend. And actually, let's just show it so that we're all on the same page. Again, let me watch our ears. Hold on. So it's
okay. So you have to be careful because I use a lot of automation with gain instead of with the volume fader.
Yeah, so you got to be careful because you can be influencing the processing, distortion, the compressors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool.
Good to know.
Good distinction, right? Because otherwise, how would you know? You're like, damn, why do my drums sound so heavy when it gets to this part, right?
I would have never thought about it until today, and you just opened my eyes up to that.
Aren't you glad you stayed, my friend? There you go.
Yes.
Cool. Very cool.
Hey,
and that's, yeah, and hang tight, Brendan. So that's the purpose of this every month. Let's say you get 5-10 questions next time I see you, then we can clarify, and now you have a little bit more clarity going into the game. So I just want to be clear what the intention is here. Okay, go for it, Brendan.
Yeah. So what about like the other automation parameters like panning and stuff? Is that all post sort of all the effects and everything like in the signal flow?
Yes, unless we're talking about bus and sends, and then you have control. In fact, I have a diagram I need to show you, but if you have any other questions, throw them out there. There's a
I was just gonna ask if you had something where we can see exactly how like all the signal flows.
It's coming. I have it. It's one of these guys. And Mags, yeah, sorry I don't have like a troubleshooting kind of document. because I mean I know what you're saying. It's just it's almost like that requires a book rather or at least like a nice compact PDF.
Yeah, that's my style. So
Yeah,
it's all good.
I love the idea. It's just the work behind it. But we gotta figure that out. Like a mixing companion is kind of what you're after. That's what it sounds like. Is that right? Like
yeah, totally.
Like let's say you're sitting down, you're like, I want this to sound more dreamy. So then you go to your mixing companion, and then it's like, here are some suggestions for making it sound dreamier. Yeah, I see what you're saying. That
You're
would be
onto
really
something
cool.
though. Yeah, that could be something for you, Eddie.
Hey, you know what? If I just clone myself, I'll be all right. All right, so let's check this out, Mags. At the very beginning, you have your MIDI controller. They all look different. It doesn't really matter. It's a MIDI controller. Note on and off and MIDI CC. We've talked about it. Okay. Then basically it goes through a process and then we perform it, right? Or you have a sequencer or the pattern format or whatever. So it goes through this process. And then if you want, you can add MIDI effects. Again, this is not optional, but it is moving in this direction. And then from here, you have the actual software instrument. This can be also an external synthesizer that you then treat with audio effects inserts. And then this is the only time you have control, unless you're like a super heavy duty guy who understands all the backlog information and logic, which there are other people who will give you more information on that. This is what you have control over: pre-fader, post-fader, and post-pan. Do you understand these or not? Because we can go over these if you want. Talk to me.
I'll go over them, sure.
Okay. All right. So here we go. Let's understand post-pan, post-fader, and pre-fader. All right. So I think if I play the bass, it'll make more sense. This is kind of an interesting bass line. Let me see if I could. Hold on. I want to just choose something that's pleasant to listen to. Yeah, fine. Okay, so we got the drums, we got the bass. Let me delete some tracks so that our screen looks nice and clean. And as of right now, here's the bass. Is this in stereo or is it mono? Does anybody know? Here, I'll let you look at the channel strip again. 1 second. What do you guys think? Stereo. Okay, but so why though? What makes you think that?
So I'm looking at the channel strip and I'm seeing a stereo level, and I see the next to the input, the two circles.
Man, good job. Because otherwise, what would happen if it was mono? What would you be looking at, here or here?
It would be Oh, go ahead, Maggie.
Yeah. No, go ahead. I was gonna guess.
I was gonna say the level readout's more narrow, like it's only one bar.
Yeah. So here you would just see one line, and then here in the channel strip, what would I see?
It would be just a narrow.
It would just be level. It'd be the same.
Or it'd be the same.
Yeah, because there's a difference between the channel strip itself being in stereo, and I'm gonna hit this button right here, Justin, and now it's become a mono channel strip. And so you can see that now it's just.
That's what I was talking about, narrow.
Right, but that doesn't, just because I changed that doesn't make it stereo or mono. In other words, you can have a stereo source going into a mono channel strip, or you can have a mono source going into a stereo.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be careful with that, because that could be confusing. But you called it. Right here, I saw it just had one line, or I'm sorry, it was wide, and so that told me that it was stereo. And then also I saw the channel strip, and I could see that the two channel strips, they differed, right? We could see that when we press play. Again, if I hit that, it's mono, but this is a stereo source. So just be aware that you have to be able to look at it and decide ultimately what is it. So you have to kind of be sure-footed, or at least be able to troubleshoot. So anyway, if I pan this to the right, we know that with balance, we're hearing just the right channel strip. So here we go. If I pan to the left, again, we're still in balance. How do I access this menu? Control click. Now we're hearing just the left side. Right? We spent some time on this at the academy. And then if I change the behavior from balance to stereo pan, we know that this is now two channel strips, and I can control them independently by moving this left, by moving this right. Okay, so that's basic stuff. So then now what we're going to work with is adding a source. And actually, I changed my mind. I want to work with these drums. So I'm going to add some reverb. Let's turn this off. Okay. All right, so you'll notice that by default, if I control click this bus, we're in post pan. So what does that mean? Okay, let me show you. If I select a verb, by the way, that plugin there that allows me to auto search, it's called plug search by Speaker Food. And if you're looking for a cool plugin that helps you look for plugins automatically, it's really, really good. Okay. So let's get rid of that. Okay. So I'm going to press play and we're going to hear what you would expect, which is basically a drum part with some reverb on it. Here we go. Now you guys know if you're using a reverb on a send, low cut so you don't get a bunch of noise. Okay, now here's the deal when it comes to post pan. If I pan all the way to the right, this reverb will also move in the same direction. So if you're wearing headphones or if you're listening through speakers, just be aware of the reverb placement, not the drum placement. It's going to move with it, but I just want you to hear where it's going. So we're on the right side now. Here we go. All right, same thing on the left. The reverb and the drums will be on the left. Okay. So then now, that's how that whole thing works. I basically move this to one side and it comes over with me, right? If I want to independently control the source sound, which is the drums, from the reverb, and I want them separated, this is why we would use post fader, is because now I can have the drums on the left and then the reverb on the right. Check it out. You guys hear that? And if you don't, just take off the left side of your headphone and
Yeah, that's really cool.
Okay, so just making sure. And then the same thing applies the other way. Now, bear in mind that we're using a bus that is in stereo. If which it kind of adds another element. If you want to really just learn this in a simple way, just make that mono and then just do the same exercise. So let's go back to post pan. I'm going to pan the drums and you should hear the part where it needs to go. So here's the drums on the right, reverb on the right. Same thing on the left here. Okay, so then here's post fader. We're going to separate the sources. Here's the other way. Okay, and why would you want that? Because sometimes you have a guitar that sounds really pretty. Let's see if I could find something that sounds nice. I don't want to take too much time on it, but yeah, okay. Okay, so then we got this nice guitar, and I'm gonna go bus one, and I want to separate the source from the effect, so I'm gonna use post fader. So the guitar is gonna be on the right hand side, and let's just make sure that is this stereo? Yeah. So this is a stereo guitar. So I don't want to eliminate the left and the right channel strip. So I'm gonna keep them together. So I'm gonna pan this left, okay, and then the reverb I'm going to pan to the right. And so now listen to this, I guess, before I add it. So check this out. So we're hearing it, if I could illustrate it this way, we're hearing it kind of like at the top of our forehead, the left side of our ear. It's kind of like this way, okay? Now, when I add this reverb, what you're going to hear is that now we're taking up space on this side with a reverberated effect. Check it out. So if you're not hearing that, I think you could solo this. Let's check this out. Hold on. Yeah. Now you got to be careful because I'm also sending the drums to that same reverb unit. But anyway, this is the reverb by itself with the guitar. Check it out. So let's say you like that, but you wanted it to be really thin or warm, whatever. It doesn't really matter. And how do you make those decisions? You got to try it, So I'm going to make this a really thin reverb on the right side. Look at the difference. Hear the difference. Here's before. I'm coloring my reverb. Check it out. Why would you want to do that? Maybe it just doesn't sound right if it's a very warm, big, lush reverb. Maybe you just need a little color, just a little bit. So now let's listen to it like this. Let me mute the drums. Okay, here we go. So now without it, there's no reverb. Check it out. You see how it's naked? Check it out. So this helps you fill out parts a lot. I know when I get bored of a guitar or something, I'm always trying to figure out how to stay interested in it, and so I'll use delay or tricks like this in post fader to separate the source sound from the reverb. Okay, any questions there? No. All right, last one then. Pre-fader. So we go pre-fader, and this here allows us to hear more of the reverb, more of the effect, and less of the original sound. So let's go back to the drums here. All right, so I'm going to set this to pre-fader. And so now the effect is happening before the volume fader. Okay, so let's listen to the original real quick. Here we go. Okay, so that's a very distinct sound. There's no confusing what that sounds like. And as soon as I hit that bus and I am in pre-fader, I'm going to drop the volume all the way down, and I just want to hear the effect unit. I want to hear the drums reverberated, but without the original. Check it out. So if you've ever wanted to get a real cavernous, majestic sound and you haven't been able to achieve it, it's probably because the source sound is too in your face and you want something to be more distant. So when you want something to sound more distant, you want to use more of the effect and less of the original source sound. Now let me just a quick distinction and then we'll cut it. If I'm in post pan and I try this trick, I try the same little trick I just did, look at what happens. Gone. We're done. Because the volume is cutting off the potential to exist, right? The way it's laid out, the volume is cutting off the effect. But again, if the effect is happening before the volume fader or pre-fader, now I can hear just the source sound. What is this good for? This is good for backup vocals that you just want, like these sweet little backup vocals in the back. You just, take the volume down, add a little bit of pre-fader with some, and it just sounds gorgeous, right? It's just in the back, you're barely hearing it. What else is this good for? I like it for snares, right? I really want something to thwack and sound super like loud. What else? I use it a lot for anything that just needs to sound washed out, like pads. You'll find your applications, but just know I want more of the effect and less of the original pre-fader. See, is there anything else in regards to that? Oh, okay. And then last thing, a blend is nice too. You don't just have to use this like exclusively, like I'm just gonna isolate it. So I'm gonna use the pre-fader mode. We're mostly gonna hear the effect, but we're also gonna hear a little bit of the actual source sound as well. So let me go ahead and clean this up, and then here you go. I'm gonna blend in the volume. Okay, here we go. And so now you have a balance of both of those. There's
Hey,
let's go, Justin.
Go ahead, Justin.
Mine's real quick. Hey, isn't this essentially the same thing as adjusting the dry signal inside of the reverb?
It's not, man. It's not. It's a whole different beast. It's just another kind of treatment. It's there's a lot more there.
Okay.
But you're gonna need it. You're gonna need it. Trust me.
Cool.
So
I'll play around with it.
yeah, it's there's more there, but let's leave it at that.
Cool.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so let's say you have the reverb playing, right? You have the volume all the way down.
Yep.
And then
Pre-fader.
you go into blending it, right?
Yep.
Can you automate the volume? So let's say like that's how you want the arrangement to go. Can you do that in
I love that. Okay, so let's just pretend we want the drums to be to just sound like, regular, and then over time we want the pre-fader to go down to sound like it's just in a big castle or something. Okay, so this is the way we're starting out. Take a listen. So then now I'm gonna take the volume of this, the drums, the source sound, the dry sound, and I'm gonna have it fade over time. Okay. So it starts off dry, and then slowly but surely we're just gonna be hearing the reverb. Here we go. Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah,
and you could do like a dramatic drop as well, right?
Oh yeah, just right after, yeah. And you could do that with your voice, right? Where it's just starting to start off raw or visceral, and then all of a sudden it just gets dreamy over time. This is something you could do from passage to passage. So at the end of a phrase, pre-fader, bring it down, and then we're just hearing reverb.
That's so cool. Yeah, I love it.
So there's a lot there. You're gonna find it. I know you are. You got the right information, so I'm happy about that. Any other questions? Let me check in with Brendan real quick. Did that all make sense?
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Okay. So then now the trick is to get into that and use it. And again, one last time, write it down. Post pan, basically default, it moves the effect with the source. I wouldn't even think about that one. The only thing I would think about is post fader allows me to separate the source from the effect, and then, which is good for guitars and synthesizers. If you need something to sound wider and you want it to come, from another side, it's fantastic. And then pre-fader, I get to hear more of the actual effects and less of the original source sound. Yeah. All right. Any other questions for this beginner Logic sesh, which we'll be doing at the beginning of every month at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Central Time?
I got one little one.
Shoot.
The mixer on the left side.
Okay, let me pull it up.
Is there a way to scroll through that? Because sometimes when I have all the inspector stuff up, it like covers it, and I can't I have to close everything in order to get to it.
Yeah, so this area right here is called the inspector channel strips. So this is the left channel strip. This is the right one. There's no real way to scroll in it. I know what you're saying though. It gets like this,
Yeah, and you can't see the stuff. You have to like close it in order to.
Yeah, especially if you start adding plugs like this.
Yeah.
In Logic we're allowed 15 plugins. Yeah.
Is there a way to actually like shrink that because it looks like yours is a lot more condensed than mine is.
Well, I will tell you one thing. There's something that I play that I should tell you about real quick. It's under preferences display. You can change the way that this looks a little bit. You see how I have large inspector? See, yours is probably like this where it looks a little smaller.
Yeah.
But my eyes need this, so I use this. So that's why it's probably a little bit thicker there. But other than that, there's no way to particularly scroll. You have to, using the disclosure triangle, close out quick help. Or by the way, you could get rid of quick help. So you see how it's stacking on top of itself? You can get rid of quick help. You can't get rid of the region inspector, and you can't get rid of the track inspector because that's vital information there. But that's the best you got right there. There's no scrolling feature. I would like that too though. Yeah, man, sorry about that.
Not your fault.
it will be at some point my responsibility, but I'm working on it. But yeah, man, I think for now, if you ever, sometimes when I get stuck as far as space, I just hit X and then I'll go in here because there's more wiggle room, right? I can resize the mixer to some degree. So hopefully that helps. And then worst case scenario, if you want another mixer screen, go to window and then just open up the mixer here. And then now I don't think you can see this on your screen, but you have an entirely different set for just the mixer.
Thanks.
No problem. Okay, so I hope that helped you guys. It really is the beginning of a much longer conversation. It's a lot of stuff, but thank you for your patience. And let's keep doing it just month to month. If I were you, I would just write the question down, and then sooner or later the month will come back. And of course, you can ask me during the classes too. By the way, we don't have to reserve it for this time. My thinking is just that there's a lot of information, and there can be gaps. And what I don't want is that we're 6 months into this, and then you have these like big gaps in your game. And so I'd rather just fill it now, take our time, fill it now, and then all of a sudden you guys will be ready for whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. So yeah, thank you for your time. Hope you learned a lot. Justin, I know you got something out of this, so that's good. But
Thanks,
yeah,
Ed, I appreciate it.
of course, yeah, man. Let's keep doing it. Dig the haircut, by the way. And yeah, Chuck, thank you very much for your time.
Thank
and
you.
I will see you guys later. Happy Monday.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye.